You are. Yeah, so, yeah.
Sorry about that.
So 10 seconds, and then we'll start. Folks all set? Whenever you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Maren Stiles. I'm the leader of the New Democratic Party here in Ontario and the leader of the official opposition. I'm really excited to be here in the historic St. Lawrence Market with MPP Kristyn Wong-Tam, a champion for their community of Toronto Centre, and also a strong voice for Ontario's main streets, our critic for small businesses. Over the pandemic, we saw so many small businesses forced to close their doors, weighed down by astronomical costs, with rising inflation and the cost of commercial rent and more. Our main streets have suffered not just through the pandemic, but beyond. Now, others are facing closure because Friday, the end of this week, the loans the federal government extended through their CEBA loan program are coming due. And thousands of small businesses are worried because they don't know how they're going to pay it back and stay afloat. Restaurants Canada says that 1 in 5 restaurants are at risk of closure. 1 in 5. That's far too many. This needs to be a wake-up call for the provincial Conservatives, that they need to do more to protect small businesses here in our province. Because time and time again, we've seen that this government prioritizes the big players in the game instead. They'd be quick to help billion-dollar box stores and keep small business owners in the lurch. And they'd be giving the biggest players in the game, Shoppers, Staples, preferential treatment, and even subsidies. The Conservatives, if they care about helping to save small businesses in the province of Ontario, they'll join us and the federal NDP this week and apply pressure to the federal government to extend the CEBA deadline until the end of this year. Businesses can be forced to close their doors. People need to be able to keep their jobs and their livelihoods, especially during what is a deep affordability crisis. And we don't want them to stop there, because there is much more that the province could be doing to help support our small businesses, which are the backbones of our communities. Help them by bringing in commercial rent control. Connect them to Ontario-made supply chains. Allow small businesses to compete for government contracts instead of handing sole-sourced contracts to American-owned corporations like Staples. If the fourth Conservative government is genuinely concerned about advancing Ontario's economy, they'll work closely with small business owners and with us. Because only the official opposition, the NDP in Ontario, is standing up for small businesses and for local jobs. We know that our whole economy depends on it. It's absolutely critical to our communities. And with that, I'd really like to take this opportunity to introduce MPP Wong-Tam to share a little bit.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction and for your leadership on this issue. My name is Kristyn Wong-Tam, the member of Provincial Parliament for Toronto Centre, as well as a small business critic for the official opposition. And I'm standing here in my community, right here in Toronto Centre, in the historic St. Lawrence Market Hall, which is one of the top tourist destinations in our city, and it is also one that's actually compensated and comprised of many small businesses. I know that many of those small businesses have taken out the CEBA loan. Many of them have struggled through the pandemic for 3.5, almost 4 years of toil. And now with 3 days out, when that loan is maturing, it is becoming very, very difficult and stressful, more so than ever before, to make that payment. We want to recognize that the federal government did something very good during the pandemic. They responded very quickly and they offered a lifeline through CEBA. That loan was actually a raft. It allowed them to survive and flow through the choppiest waters during the global health pandemic. But we also know that it's not over. For many of our small businesses, the pandemic impacts are still among us. And I want to raise this issue in Ontario because 40% of the CEBA approved loans went to Ontario small businesses. And that is over 360,000 businesses in Ontario that received a CEBA loan. We're hearing that 4 out of those 10 of those businesses are going to have some difficulty making the payments back, which means that they're going into further debt than before. And we know that small businesses in Ontario are already straddled with about $105,000 of additional debt because of the pandemic. They're not just taking on debt from CEBA, which they now have to pay back, which means that they're going to go to private lenders to take money out to pay back a public loan. But they're also straddled with credit card debt. They're straddled with line of credit obligations. They are pouring private money and other types of sources. And it's at higher interest rates than ever before. We know that our profits are down for small businesses, and so is the consumer traffic flow, which is why we're here at St. Lawrence Market. St. Lawrence Market represents probably the very best in Toronto when it comes to small independent food businesses, in which is we know that Restaurants Canada have cited that 1 out of every 5 businesses will, according to their membership, most likely close. I have personally spoken to property owners and small business owners who are really at a breaking point. If they can make their January rent, they're not going to be able to make their February rent. And it was made evidently clear that that lifeline that the Liberal government, Trudeau government extended during COVID needs to be extended once again till the end of this year. I want to recognize that we are joined by a number of leaders, esteemed leaders to our local community. They will share with you stories from their membership that they're hearing directly about the mental anguish that property owners are experiencing because of the lack of support from the federal government, the lack of compassion that they need to see from the federal government right now. Otherwise, their members will be tiling their doors forever. This means that families will lose a source of income. This will change the face of our main streets forever if those businesses go down without the CEBA extension, which is absolutely critical. I'd like to call upon our first speaker, who is John Carew, the Executive Director of the Toronto Association for BIAs. He's been a steadfast leader on this particular issue and many others I've had the opportunity of working with him over the years. Following John's remarks, we're going to hear from Graham Natu, who is on the board of directors of the St. Lawrence Market BIA, also the operations director of the Oat Spaghetti Factory, one of the most iconic and beloved businesses that we have in the market. Both of these gentlemen will share with you the challenges that they have heard from their members and how they are asking the federal government to respond to it. Before John comes to the podium, I want to say this. The Premier was asked by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, as they asked all premiers, to write a letter to the Prime Minister. But that should not be the only thing that he does. That's the only thing that we've heard the Premier do on the CEBA issue. I too wrote a letter. I did not get a response from the Trudeau government, but since then I've been working hard with our business partners to make sure that more attention can be brought to this issue. In 3 days, the clock is counting. We are going to continue to push on this issue until the 12th hour, and we're hoping that the federal government will listen and sit down with their stakeholders, including CFIB, Restaurants Canada, OBIA, and TABIA, to resolve this issue as quickly as possible and to send our businesses a lifeline that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kristyn. My name is John Carew. I'm the Executive Director of the Toronto Association of BIAs, representing Toronto's 84 BIAs, some 90,000 businesses and property owners. That's not to say that the CEBA issue is a Toronto issue. This is provincial and, quite frankly, national. I think we all know that 98% of businesses in Canada are made up by small businesses. 68% of the jobs in the retail sector and the business sector are made up by small businesses. And 1/3 of the GDP of this country is a direct result of the efforts of entrepreneurs and small businesses. It's not a small factor, yet small business doesn't seem to be considered an industry or a sector out there. Whenever an automotive manufacturing plant announces that they're going to lay off 500 people and close down a production line, all levels of government contribute billions of dollars to keep those 400 or 500 jobs active. For small businesses, I can tell you that there is dozens, if not hundreds, of small businesses that close down on a weekly basis. Yet we don't get the infusion and support that we need to keep small business active in our communities, nor do we see any training or retraining for some of these entrepreneurs to continue their livelihood. And this recall of the CEBA loan is only amplifying that. It's no secret that we're grateful for all the supports we received as a small business community throughout the pandemic, etc. But ultimately, the pandemic doesn't end by a flip of a switch and everything is back to normal. It has become a perfect storm, whether it's interest rates, whether it's supply chain issues, and even labor out there that continues to trouble the small business Main Street operators. We all know how Main Street goes, so goes the rest of the neighborhood. This is not about bailing out or assisting, for that matter, local small business, but it goes to assisting in revitalization and recovery of Main Street right across the country. So to that end, we simply ask, with 3 days out, that all MPPs, all MPs, and municipalities reach out to the federal government for them to reconsider and extend and come up with a better alternative than having to pay back the full loan or not receive any of the non-repayable portions of the contributions. So again, it's a simple ask because we know and we've seen and we've talked to a number of businesses right across the country, but specifically here in Toronto, we will see an accelerated closure once this comes due. So again, how Main Street goes, so goes the rest of the neighborhood. We ask the federal government to reinvest in the entrepreneurial spirit of those that have taken their life savings and invested in the local small business. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Graham Nashville, local business owner and a board member in Old Town Toronto, POA. I'm standing here today to discuss the CEBA loan forgiveness deadline. Our message is simple: extend the CEBA forgiveness deadline until the end of 2024. The Old Town Toronto area is home to hundreds of small businesses, many of which took out CEBA loans during the pandemic. These loans were a lifeline for many of us who were mandated closed, helping keep the doors open for employees on the payroll. The situation of these small businesses can be likened to someone drowning. The government threw us a lifeline in the form of CEBA, saving tens, if not hundreds of thousands of businesses and the jobs associated with them. Now, as they pull that line in, just as many of them are but a few feet from shore. They're letting go of that rope. Without an extension in the program, that lifeline risks becoming an ungraspable hope. Many are being forced to consider additional loans with higher interest rates to secure the forgivable portion, which is neither sustainable or a fair solution. Businesses will close, jobs will be lost. Therefore, we strongly urge the government to reconsider and extend the CEBA forgiveness deadline to December 31st, 2024. This would not only be genuinely helpful lifeline, but also a reachable one, giving businesses the necessary time to recover and thrive. Small businesses are not just economic entities, but the heart of communities like ours in Old Town Toronto and here in the St. Lawrence market. Rise and fall together. Their success is our collective victory, their struggle, our shared burden. We ask for support that is not just well-intentioned, but also truly effective. Give us more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tam, Graham, John. Thank you all for being here today. You heard a desperate plea, obviously, from the sector that the federal government needs to extend the loan deadline past Friday. You've heard that we're all here because we really believe that this will be the end of a number more of our small businesses. That means jobs are going to be lost. And as John said, so effectively, this sector is going to get hit hard. It's going to impact our communities because the mainstreams really are the heart of our communities. And this is a province-wide issue, and I can speak to that because I travel all across this province. And from Windsor, Sarnia, to Thunder Bay, to Ottawa, Napanee, right here in the GTA, small businesses are saying they will not be able to hit their doors. So we're calling on the province to do the right thing, to get involved, to step up. And where is the premier? He needs to step up. He needs to call the federal government right now and say you need to act. We cannot allow for this to happen. And we need all of those 27 Liberal MPs here in the city of Toronto, Liberal MPs all across this province, need to be calling their government and asking them to please extend the deadline on behalf of their constituents. Conservative MPs need to be on the phones in their communities, alongside us, the MVP and the official opposition is doing exactly the same. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Art, apart from applying pressure as you're suggesting, what is there anything more the Ford government can do specifically on this CEBA issue?
Well, I mean, absolutely, the key is pressure, right? And we know that the government has to be aware because certainly they are hearing this from small businesses all across the province and industry leaders. There's not a chamber of commerce meeting that I take all across this province where this isn't raised as a critical issue in the future of communities. So we know they're hearing it. The premier should be on the phone today. A letter that was signed by all the premiers back in October is just not going to cut it. The government needs to be reminded right now that this deadline is coming in 3 days, and they need to know that the premiers and their governments across the province, certainly here in the province of Ontario, haven't given up on small businesses yet. So that's critical. I've listed some other things that the provincial government can do right now to help support our struggling small businesses. Commercial rent control is the first thing I would strongly encourage the government to consider. And connecting small businesses to that Ontario supply chain, making sure that small businesses in this province have access to some of the same contracts that they seem to be throwing out there as sole source to giant American corporations. These are other things that the government can do right now.
YMCA is worried about the lack of funding for child care space in Ontario. And they believe some child care services provider will have to close this year because of that. Do you think that the government will do enough to support them?
Well, absolutely. We've heard this from child care providers. They have been signaling the alarm for a long time now, raising the flag that this was coming. You've seen the provincial government, the Conservative government, releasing half measures, but they haven't taken it far enough. We know that the government needs to change the funding formula if we're going to be able to keep those child care centers open. We also know, and we're hearing this from the frontline workers, providers, child care operators, that if we do not see a significant increase in wages, not just for early childhood educators, but for the other folks who work in our child care centers, we will never be able to meet the demand. And this is a clear thing. People out there are excited to have the opportunity for a truly national child care program to be able to pay affordable child care. But those places are not available yet. And now they're rising. We don't see them being able to meet the need anywhere close to it. So I'm hearing this from people in my community. I know people all across entities are hearing it all across the province. We need to bump wages up to $30 an hour for PCEs and $25 for all of those other child care workers if we're going to be able to retain them and recruit more. And because to a great extent, this is a workforce challenge.
The government is sending a position to shut down some service Ontario desk and to give a contract to stable. Do you have any preoccupation or worried about something around that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think like a lot of Ontarians, we're wondering how this happened. How is it that the government ended up with a sole source contract to a big American corporation, Staples? And what does this mean? That they are closing kiosks in small businesses. I mean, here we are talking about the future of small business in the province of Ontario and the critical point at which they're at and how much they're struggling. And you're going to remove kiosks. It looks like those are mostly coming out of existing small businesses in Ontario. Meanwhile, they're finding public dollars to refurbish or renovate Staples locations so they can draw more of those customers into Staples stores. And frankly, let's just call it what it is. You're moving out of a lot of times those small businesses that are struggling in our communities. So I really question what the government's priorities are and how they came to this decision. They should be transparent and they need to be more accountable clearly to the people of Ontario. I think the Premier needs to come out and address this issue himself. It's outrageous.
And Mark, just to follow up on that, City News is reporting some of those taxpayer dollars are also going to Walmart for the same reason. Why do you think the government is handing two of these deals to capitalized U.S. companies?
Well, look, that's the big question that everybody's asking. Why is the government handing out these sole source contracts to big American corporations like Walmart and Staples when we have small businesses right here in the province of Ontario struggling, including, by the way, some of our franchises, Canadian Tire, a lot of those locations where you have a kiosk, Canadian business owners, it's franchises. Why is the government leaping over the heads of those small businesses and giving them sole source contracts? They should be supporting our small businesses. They should be ensuring that those customers, those potential customers and clients go through our Ontario businesses, not giant American corporations. Ontarians have a lot of questions right now about why this government continues to fund big corporate conglomerates instead of our Ontario small businesses.
Today was a class action suit against Ontario. There was 304 loans named the government not paying this time around. But today the government made a bunch of changes recently with these class action suits available. Wondering what you think those changes right now today and what.
Well, this government has shown time and time again that they will do absolutely anything to avoid accountability, even change the laws so they can avoid any accountability or responsibility for the absolute terrible situation in the loss of life during the pandemic, which we know couldn't have been avoided if this government was properly regulating long-term care, properly inspecting long-term care facilities, and investing in public long-term care and not for profit and not in private, the interest of private long-term care providers and their shareholders. And so the government needs to take responsibility, but they've shown, Doug Ford and Conservatives have shown time and time again that they will continue to change the laws so they can avoid accountability. And in the province of Ontario, people are tired of this. People are struggling. They lost family members, and in many cases, families are still, are still mourning that loss and want the government to step up and show some responsibility.
Just follow up. Is this a live issue in terms of problems that are coming up in
Oh, absolutely. I think that we still have many long-term care facilities where Ontarians are concerned, particularly when we're talking about private for-profit facilities where our public dollars are going into increasingly shareholder pockets instead of patient care. And we still, of course, need to see more investment in long-term care. But we're not seeing that in the nonprofit sector as much as we're seeing it in public sector as much as we're seeing it in
About Service Ontario, when I think about Welland and Hamilton, those areas, Service Ontario, Hamilton, Welland has to provide French services at Service Ontario. Do you think that Staple or a big company like that would be able to provide those services or would even care about those French services?
I mean, this is the problem we run into when we locate important services that people in Ontario depend on, like Service Ontario, in a big American company. This is the kind of question we're going to have. Will they be able to provide the service? Will it be fully accessible to people in Ontario? And but I don't want to lose sight, since we're here at beautiful St. Lawrence Market today, and we're talking about the impact of the pandemic, of this government's decisions, of the end of the CEBA loans on CEBA loans coming due on small businesses in this province. The advantage that Staples and Walmart are going to have of locating Service Ontario kiosks in those companies, in their locations, is that they are going to be driving customers into those shops, right? Those are customers who we want to be out there on our main streets, visiting those small businesses in our communities, right? Those people are going to be driving out of those community businesses and into those big companies again and again and again. And the impact on our communities, the impact on the quality of service, I believe, is deeply concerning. But again, we are operating here in a complete vacuum, right? We don't know the details of the contract. We don't know why the government decided to make this a sole source contract. Why couldn't they have made this an RFP? What were they trying to avoid? What kind of secret backroom deals have they made, again, with Walmart and Staples, so that the government could divert all those public dollars into those companies at a time when our small businesses, our Canadian businesses, are really struggling to make it. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks so much for coming down. Thank you. Don't forget to support your local small businesses. Thank you.